Hello, everyone, and welcome to this particular panel discussion, which is going to be an interesting one. We have a diverse panel of really interesting folk from diverse walks of life. And I consider it a privilege to be able to have the opportunity to be the moderator for this discussion. Um, right now, we're going through an unprecedented time, right? Virtual volunteering is the rage now, and everyone working in the social sector, if you're looking to tap into human potential, supporting the sector, space of virtual volunteering is an eventuality that we have to embrace. Now, when I look at eVidyaloka, it's an organization that made the space of virtual volunteering cool, demonstrated that virtual volunteering could work at scale, and is an organization that leveraged the power of technology to reach out to children to rural India well before virtual giving back was acknowledged, let alone accepted. No surprise that the virtual giving back engine, Red eVidyaloka, continues to be firing on all cylinders even during the pandemic. I've had the opportunity to work with the organization for the last 6 years in various capacities, supporting the work that they do, and I've been truly grateful to have been a part of this journey. Today, on Teachers' Day, as an ode to all the teachers out there who are doing wonderful work transforming lives, we have a diverse panel of volunteer teachers. And now we're going to kickstart that conversation in the hope of understanding how does this even work? How do volunteer teachers deliver impact? What does their everyday teaching experience look like? Why do they do what they do? And how is it making a difference to the lives of children out there? On that note, let's get started with the conversation. We have, as I said, a diverse panel, and I'm going to try and ensure that everyone gets an opportunity to present their perspective and ensure that this is an enriching discussion. I'm going to kickstart the conversation by coming to you, Meenal. You are a teacher by profession. You have experience in working in the special education sector, and currently you're teaching science in a secondary school in the UK. Now, having been involved with the program since 2018, right? Um, what nuggets of wisdom can you share when it comes to best practices on online teaching?
Right. Hello, everyone, and thank you, Ajay. Right. Online teaching, it's being a teacher. I think I would still look at a face to face approach as a more preferred approach into teaching, obviously. And because, I feel quite privileged of having chosen to go in this profession because every time I'm surrounded with children, it just one makes me feel young, and it's just fun to be in class, doing experiments. And this is something which is not possible in the current scenario, and we've had to move over to online teaching. It's not obviously the same as face to face, but let me just share how we can try and take it as close to a face to face experience as possible. It's just all about adapting to the new normal that we have right now. Now, with eVidyaloka, it has always been face to face. Having based, being based away from India, this was the only option I had. And so I was like, how can I capitalize on what I have already? Online is not the same, but nonetheless, it's got its stronger elements which we can capitalize upon. So although it's not the same, we I started going for a blended approach, as in, not just completely going to, switching on to PowerPoints and, what we call death by PowerPoint. And, I wouldn't want to, because it can be boring for the students to sit staring at the screen and being talked to. It's got to be interactive, and it's got to be more blended. So what I did was, science being my subject, I simple experiments which I could do at home. Filtration, then we had air pressure balloon rockets, we had pressure bottle, leaky bottles, all sorts of experiments. I would just carry it out in front of the screen, and they absolutely loved it. And I would ask them to go and try it out with their siblings at home. So it was bringing in the traditional, keeping that alive whilst using the power of technology. So on screen time was not just PowerPoints and talk, but it was doing experiments, giving them projects where they could work on actually getting to do things kinesthetically. So that was one approach which I felt they quite enjoyed, and I enjoyed as well, because teaching should be enjoyable as well. That was one thing. Secondly, I looked at, because it was all about engagement. Online can be quite a one-way street, and which it shouldn't be. It can be, if students are engaged through various approaches, then makes it enjoyable for them as well. So one was blending the technology with the traditional. Secondly, it was about addressing all the different learning styles. So not just visuals. Visuals are very good. Images, animations of how food goes down the digestive system. That's one of the great aspects of online teaching. But apart from that, auditory, that is something which I have seen. I just discovered as a process whilst teaching. We were talking about space, and I had these two students in the learning from home classroom, and we were at that time. The two astronauts, Bob and Doug, just happened to go into space to the ISS, and I was just mentioning this. I tend to refer to the current news in science when I'm teaching. So we were talking about how these two astronauts, I shared the images and the videos of them taking off, being launched up to the International Space Station. That got them interested. And then I said, you know what? You can actually watch the International Space Station go above your village, your city, your town at certain times. And I gave them a timetable of when to look out for it. And you can't miss it. It's quite bright. Um, Stargazing is one of my, on the side, it's one of my passions. And one of them, Samir, he actually looked at the timings. He actually spotted it, the International Space Station. And without me having said anything, he took a video of that and he sent it to me. And he was like, ma'am, this is what I picked up. And it was absolutely brilliant. I was not expecting that. And then I realized, why not get them to share their experiences, not just through writing down assignments like, question 1, 2, 3, but could be through an audio input. So I asked them to introduce them to not podcast, as in, I didn't want to confuse them with these technical jargons, but I just said, if you can record your experiences, it doesn't have to be a video, it can be an audio, and then we can show off all your good work, showcase on some online page, and all your friends can see that. And they were like, wow, is that possible? And I was like, yes, absolutely, why not? So then Dheeraj, another student, we were talking about COVID hygiene practices and hand washing techniques and all that. So he recorded an audio and he sent it to me about how should we go about hygiene practices during Corona times. I had a guest lecture also. This basically my dad, who is a doctor, and I asked him to share his insights into you know, how to go about staying safe during these times. And I added a guest podcast section in this online. It's nothing but a weblog, like a portal, nothing high tech, literally a blogging site where I would upload their work. So Dheeraj works on a space station. He makes paper mache models of planets. He sent me a picture and I uploaded it there saying, this is what Dheeraj has done. Samir uploaded his space station sighting and I uploaded that video there. Their audio notes on COVID hygiene, their project on leaves, different types of leaves that they collected, and they made a project where they pasted them. It was all traditional projects. It wasn't involving a lot of tech, but I used the leverage of tech to kind of showcase their work. So when they go back to school, and even for them now, it's very motivating to see that this can be accessed by a lot of other students all over the world, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant motivation for them. So that was the other thing, bringing in all the approaches, not just PowerPoints and talking. The other thing I tried out, and I think it really got them engaged, was teaching through games and quizzes and a quick poll, like not a survey, but a quick poll saying, so what do you think about this? Click there if you think this, click here if you think, or just simple quizzes. They absolutely love quizzes. And I used to do this even when they were in school. So get them into two groups and do either boys versus girls, but then Sipunga was just boys only. So then we had different ways of involving them. But quiz is something because it's competitive. It gives them this good competitive positive challenges, and which is what they enjoy. And using simple tools like it could be just, I mainly use um, Chrome extensions and some PowerPoint tricks, simple ones, which they can um, interactively participate in. It's like, a simple animations, which gets them involved. So quizzes, games as well. But then I keep going back to the traditional approaches of carrying out practicals and stuff like that. They have done practicals based at home, simple things, but then we use tech to connect. So that's where I think it's a very powerful tool, very, very powerful.
It's very
Um,
interesting to hear how you're marrying so many different aspects to make learning effective. You're clearly, and I love the term that you used, death by PowerPoint, and I can totally relate to that. Side note, love how you're summarizing this. You're saying experiential learning is still retained by ensuring that you're demonstrating something and the students get to follow that when they do it by themselves. You're leveraging audio visual content much more effectively, and they're able to see what you are trying to teach, and that's so important. And bringing in engagement aspects like games and quizzes and polling, really interesting. Meenal, thank you so much for sharing these nuggets of wisdom with us. It's so refreshing to hear about a working professional taking time off to give back. On that note, I'm going to move on to a retired professional now, Amitabh Deshmukh. Now, here is a gentleman that I love, and I can totally connect with him because he's a millennial at heart. He's somebody who graduated with in economics and statistics from Mumbai University, worked for about 29 years in SBI, went to France to get his MBA at the age of 50, was a lecturer in management colleges, and here he is playing his second innings on the front foot by being a volunteer teacher. Amitabh, you come with such fascinating experiences in life. And can you tell us what are the kind of changes that you've had to adapt to your teaching methodology and improvements that were made as part of the Learn from Home program to be effective?
Uh, where do I begin? The first thing is that I thought I've never taught in schools, but I thought I can relate to a student because I have never stopped being a student myself. In one sense or the other, I have always been a student. And uh, after I left my job in State Bank of India and completed my MBA in France, and I started doing two things. One is playing online chess, and the other is taking online courses. And I got addicted to both. Huh. So I, I did a lot of online courses, Coursera, EDX, Khan Academy, and I was so impressed with Khan Academy that I went and found out about the gentleman who started it and number of videos and how he taught his niece, and then he put up these maths lessons on YouTube, and then lots of people started connecting with him, and then he set up the academy, and then one day I think Bill Gates, he got to know that Bill Gates was using Khan Academy to teach his children mathematics. So that is how powerful this is. This online thing is. Anyway, last year I got to know about eVidyaloka, and I thought this would be a great idea. I have I have taught online once or twice on Skype, but that was like not in school. It was somebody who wanted a small whatever, but not in school really. So I liked this, and I applied for the job as a volunteer in eVidyaloka. And somebody called me up and interviewed me or talked to me, and then I started teaching English in class 8 in West Bengal. And this was a completely new experience. And I had to read up my own English first because one advantage was that I love learning languages, and I've learned several languages, and I can speak a number of Indian languages because I'm a Bengali married to a South Indian, worked in Gujarat. So so learning languages is something that I love doing. Um, in my first class, I thought, how am I going to teach them English in Bengali? What is the baseline? How much do they know? What's their foundation? All these things. And how do I check everything? Then an idea struck me, and I said that what is something which they might be able to, they, they should be able to do. So I wanted to, something interesting. So I thought a bit, and I asked them if they had a bicycle. I thought this is something which a guy in a village in West Bengal should be very familiar with, a bicycle. So yes, everybody had a bicycle or seen a bicycle or ridden a bicycle or whatever it is. So the first task which I gave them in class was draw a bicycle. Okay, I didn't know how I would be using it, but I'm glad I did that. And I told the assistant to to take pictures of those drawings of bicycles and send them to me on WhatsApp. And of course, I told them to sign the pictures which they had drawn with their names and all that. When the pictures came, I was amazed at how beautiful the drawings were, how detailed, and each one had a slightly different version of a bicycle. And they took great pains to draw the chain, the pedal, the brakes, and some people had more elaborate bicycles and stuff like that. And then in my next class, I started using the bicycle as a metaphor for learning English. Like I said, just as you have different parts of a bicycle, you have a chain, you have a pedal, you have a brake, and so on. English has parts of speeches. You have nouns, you have verbs, you have prepositions, conjunctions, and so on. And each one has to do its job. Only then it makes sense. Okay, otherwise you don't, it doesn't make sense. The language has to make sense. Because what is language? Language is one way of getting the thing that is in your head into someone else's head. Okay, so if you don't know a language, you can't make that connection. So, and then later I started using Bengali and English, and pointed out similarities. Like I am going to my school. Okay, in Bengali you will say ami skule jacchi. You don't ami skule jacchi. So in Bengali the a is connected to school to make it, the preposition is not a separate word, but it is with the noun itself. It's an extension of the noun itself, and you know what exactly, or basically the functions of verbs and things and so on. To explain to them the importance of a verb, I said that suppose you have everything. You have rice, you have lentils, you have vegetables, you have everything. You have oil, salt, everything, but you don't have fire. You don't have fire. What do you do? So I said, yeah, you see, fire. Verb is the fire in a sentence. Okay. So verb is the fire in the sentence. Okay, so that's how kind of immediately they connected. That is the importance of a verb. Okay, that's how you, and once you get the position of a verb, and then I started building. So I said that every house has bricks. Every house is made of bricks. But just because every house is built with bricks doesn't mean that every house is the same. Every house is different. Okay. So words are your bricks. but the sentences you make will be different from the sentences I make and from the sentences someone else makes. And then when you collect these sentences, you make paragraphs, and when you collect paragraphs, you have stories. Okay, so each story is different, just like a house is, each house is different. So this way, it went on, and then learning from home started in June, and the it started in June. And as I like to say, basically in online learning or any learning for that matter, it's basically three A's. Three A's. The first A is the availability. The content has to be available somewhere. Availability. Second, you have to have access to it. So the second A is access. And the third A is attitude. Attitude of the student and the attitude of the teacher, both. Okay, the attitudes are important, access is important, and availability is important. And at different points of time, one of these A's becomes a priority. So in teaching learn from home, I found that access became a priority because the signal strength was weak. Signal strength was weak. Huh. And sometimes you feel that if the signal strength is weak, it is weak. What can you do about it? But then I had this student, Rakesh, in Purulia, West Bengal. He was uh, what shall I say, innovative. He had this jugaad, what you call jugaad in Hindi. Okay. He found that if he climbed up a tree, then at the top of the tree, the signal strength would be better. Okay. So he went and built this tree house, a machan, on the top of a tree so that his signal strength would be better, so that he could attend the classes and and make it more useful for him and me and everybody. So Rakesh and Nisha are my students, online students. And when I teach English, I use the village setting. If I ask them to tell me all the animals that are available, that are there in the village, so then they keep talking about the duck and the hens and donkeys and so on and so forth. And when you talk about animals, then you talk about the young of animals. So young of a duck is a duckling. So I use the village concept, village context to build on the language. Mm, and sometimes and the thing about teaching online, teaching English, is that you have to improvise all the time, and you have to customize it to your students, right? Mm, customize to your students. Like for example, it suddenly occurred to me yesterday to share with them that language is just another human invention. It is something which is made by man. So I asked them, how long do you think it took to make Bengali? So they was a bit surprised. What do you mean by making Bengali? I said there was a time when it was not there, and there is a time when it is there. So obviously the language has been made. Okay, just like a bridge is made, a house is made, so a language is made. So how long do you think it took to make Bengali? So they said, so after some thought, they said crores of years. Crores of years. Okay. So they literally says crores of years. I said, yes, that is how long it takes to make a language. So and therefore to learn that language also is not easy. It takes time. Okay. So
Amitava, I absolutely love your approach to teaching. You're using metaphors as a way to relate to the students and convey what you're trying to do. Love the three A's: accessibility, availability, and the right attitude that goes into teaching. And the best part about your approach that I like is you're using the children's context to relate to them, and to make it easier for them to understand what's happening out there. Thank you for doing what you do. This is just simply fabulous. Thank you, Amitava. That brings me to Venkatesh, who is a senior program manager with Adobe. You've been volunteering with eVidyaloka since 2019. You're a corporate volunteer. Volunteering is a big thing when it comes to corporates. I'm part of Cisco. We've had the opportunity to partner with eVidyaloka and have hundreds of volunteers being part of the program as well. It's an enriching experience. I want to hear from you. what are some of the moments or experiences that you cherish being a part of the organization? And I just want to be mindful of time and request the panelists to just keep an eye out on the clock when we are responding. Thank you so much. Venkatesh, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajay. And good morning to everyone. Yeah, I don't know where to start. There are so many moments and experiences that I have, collected over the last year. I would like to answer in two parts. So first, I can talk about what is my experience working with eVidyaloka, and then I will also talk about how was the experience, actually teaching and interacting with the students. So to start with eVidyaloka, I came to know about it last year when they came to our company and described what it is. And once I understood what they're doing, I was immediately hooked. So I could relate to these schools because I also come from all my childhood education has been from rural schools, government or government aided schools. So I could really relate to them. So eVidyaloka, one thing I really like and I appreciate is the effective usage of technology that they are making with all the portals and the material that they're preparing, and how easily they are making it accessible to the teachers. So it's not really that big of a deal as long as you have the willingness to teach. So whenever you think about the teaching to remote places through online, you always think about, okay, how do I get the textbook? How do I prepare? I don't have experience in making various the class plan and things like that. So everything is available. So that's something that eVidyaloka has done really well, and I really enjoyed, and it was really useful. As long as you are willing to teach, everything is available. So that's so easy it is. Another thing that they have done is about this class assistant and setting up the whole class itself. So I would say the class assistant is the interface between the teacher on the other side and the student, if you will. Right. So without them, I don't think the class will be effective. They are the ones who actually talk to the student, make them sit. It's really hard to make student. I was teaching fifth grade, and it's really hard to make them sit in one place. And literally you need to drag them, and in between they will go out, run around. And there was one boy who was so naughty and mischievous every time, and unfortunately or fortunately, my class used to be right after the lunchtime. So this guy will never turn up. And when I asked, hey, where is Maruti, he said, hey, he's cycling every day. After lunch he has to cycle for 15 minutes. So he will be cycling around, and the class assistant will go fetch him. So so that's why I say this class assistant is a very key aspect of this whole experience. Then coming to the experience as a teacher itself, I think there are many. Uh, so let me say the beginning, when the first class, I still remember how nervous the kids were. I think that was the first time they were having the online class, and it was first time for me as well. I could see their faces, but they could not see the emotion on my side because I was hiding it. I was probably more nervous than them, sitting on the other side of the the camera. But it took about I would say a week or two to really get the class going, getting to know them well, talking to them about their background, their family, how do they come to school, what do they eat, a lot of things. We had a lot of those interactions, and then trying to find what they like to do. Some of them are great artists, some of them are dancers, some of them are singers. So as the class progressed, they started coming out and say, hey, I made this drawing, I want to show you. Then somebody will say, I want to sing. This is something that I like. So I think these are some of the things that you won't expect, but it just comes out. And these are some of the moments I really enjoyed. Uh, and one another thing I want to highlight was a surprise event that the students made for last year's Teachers' Day. So it was the Teachers' Day, and they just called me the previous day and said, the class assistant called me and said, "Sir, we our students have made a event, and we are inviting event for online teachers." So all the online teachers of that school were present, and they had a dance, they had a group singing, they had solo dance, group dance, and everything inside the class. So they had set it up in such a way that there is enough room for all these performances and activities. That was really surprising and entertaining, and I really enjoyed that. So that was something that I will never forget. And
Venkatesh, you
then
touch upon such an interesting aspect of volunteering and giving back. Sometimes we wonder who's the one who's gaining by doing this? Is
exactly.
it in what mindset are we going? In a mindset of service, we think we're doing something for someone, but what we are actually doing is gaining a lot of perspectives, gaining that humbling experience where you realize students are taking the effort to do something for people who are doing something for them, and then you realize who exactly are we serving and who exactly is benefiting from this entire exercise. Thank you so much for sharing
Absolutely.
your perspectives on this. Now I'm going to my last panelist, Nitya, and I must admit I'm a little nervous speaking to Nitya because she's a teacher with over 20 years of experience, and teachers have a way of reading people. So Nitya, you started as a content developer and then moved on and are now donning multiple roles, being a teacher, a content developer, and whatnot at eVidyaloka. What can you share about any evolution or personal changes that the volunteers go through? Any changes in outlook or approach to life, especially now that you're teaching rural children here?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's really a pleasure to be in this panel talking about my experience in eVidyaloka. Yeah, as he rightly mentioned, I've been a teacher for 20 years across the country and away from the country also. I've taught in the international schools also, but always I wanted to come back and teach and volunteer for the underprivileged or students at the rural schools all. And rightly, I met somebody my friend at Shanghai who was teaching for eVidyaloka. So right now we are 5 friends together, all of us in the eVidyaloka program. I am the content developer. I initially started as a content developer, but once I came back to India, I started teaching the rural. So as a content developer, I had lots of great ideas. I wanted to share the maximum with the children. But actually, when I landed up teaching, that's when I knew what is the background of these children. And I should say I evolved along with them as a progressive teacher. And of course, I agree this technology has been a real empowerment for us. And then that's a very good platform to reach out to these. I used to always wonder whether I should go and settle down in a village setup and start teaching there. But now with eVidyaloka in hand, I think I'm able to reach out to many. But mostly I have been associated with this group in Melsadamangalam. I should say I teach the 6, 7, 8 science, and then they are extremely disciplined children. Always what I do is I start a class with some activity, like activities like breathing exercise, or I will do some kind of actions like which will be like a game between us to bring them to my control, to my classroom. The whole class will be under my control. That is my pattern of working with the children, and they get attracted to me because science being a subject which generally people don't get along or they don't understand easily. I have small methods. Like I teach nursery rhymes also. I would just ask them, Humpty Dumpty, how is it related to Cinderella story, Sleeping Beauty story? Like that, I would start with something like an activity, and then would go on with that. So that is the big evolution which happened in me and my teaching in rural schools. And to me personally, it has really been a very satisfying part of my life, I should say. I look forward for eVidyaloka programs and the way the number of events we conduct. Recently, I was a judge for the Rangoli and for the Independence Day program, the art. So what I did was, to my male Sadamangalam group, I wanted them to participate actively. So I showed them my artwork, and then how I use natural colors. I just don't tell them you have to buy colors, use them, because we know their background and we don't want them to go buy something in this for the when I was doing the learn from home program, mathematics. So I taught them from with whatever we have at home, like turmeric colors from the petals of the flower. I have done my work with natural colors. So I told them how we can use whatever is in the kitchen and how we can present it in a nice way. So we had a small activity based on that. So the Rangoli also was a very interesting, like we do flower Rangoli, and then Rangoli with whatever is available around them. So that was my experience with this group of children. The bundle of budding scientists, I should say, they have got their own way of learning. Mathematical skills, I'm just amazed by the way the 7th standard they had done it. They could just do mental maths. That is one activity I conduct. I start with mental maths program only, which I thought it's a necessity. So I do a lot of mental math with them, and they are simply amazing. And then small techniques I teach them for good presentation of their paper and how they should go about it. So these are all the ways I have worked with these children to not only just the subject point of view, life skills and personal skills also. So I associate the subject with the life skills. And that is how I had done the LFH program as such for the 2-3 months I worked, like June, July, and August with them. So that is a wonderful experience.
Nitya, thank you so much for sharing how you're leaning on your professional experience and expertise to again work with the students as part of the LFH program. This has been a rich and diverse conversation so far, and I would love to keep the conversation going, but we're short on time. So can I put all the panelists on the spot and ask you to describe your eVidyaloka experience in one word? No explanations required, no follow-ups required. Just describe your experience in one word. Let's hear it. Let's start with Meenal. One word.
Humbling.
Humbling. Venkatesh?
Effective technology use.
Okay. Amitava? Amitava, I think you're on mute.
Okay. I would say caring.
Caring. Nitya?
Mine is absolute satisfaction of teaching all these years. This is the best part of my life. Absolute satisfaction is the one word you asked for.
And I couldn't have summarized this conversation better than what the panelists have spoken so far. We're going through unprecedented times, as I said earlier. And despite everything, here is an organization, eVidyaloka, that is going from strength to strength with the support of volunteers, reaching out to over 190 schools across 10 states, delivered over 3,800 sessions on English, math, science, life skills to students. And all I can say is all the best to the teachers who are doing this. All the best to the organization that's doing this wonderful work. Let's keep the spirit of service up and running. And remember that we gain more by doing this than what we think we're giving. Thank you, everyone. It's been an enriching conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.